Hello and welcome. Scottish actor Sean Connery became a worldwide star, bringing to life Ian Fleming's British spy James Bond as the original and best 007. Throughout his career, Connery had carefully avoided being typecast and shrewdly chose or won a diverse range of other roles that would benefit from his powerful on-screen presence. One of his most outstanding was as tough Irish-American cop Jim Malone, recruited by Eliot Ness to take on crime boss Al Capone and his gang in The Untouchables. Connery won a Best Supporting Actor Oscar and Golden Globe for his performance, working with director Brian De Palma. When I spoke with Sean in Sydney shortly after the film's release, he recounted how he got the offer of the role from De Palma and the many difficulties they faced shooting the film.
I'd met him a few years ago in Avarias in France, and it's the only time we talked with John Bowman actually, and then out of the blue he sent the script, and immediately in reading it one could see it was a good piece. Also the name was not unfamiliar, it's been around for 30 years.
Exactly. Yeah.
And really, immediately you could see it was a good script.
So what was your reaction to the character, though?
I thought it was, right away, I said, yeah, no problem. Love to do it. And then came back and said, okay, when can we meet? And I said, okay, I'm just coming to LA anyway. So I came into LA and spent, a couple of days in De Palma, went through it all. And then I went off, when I came back the next time, we were 1 week's rehearsal. They had 2 weeks rehearsal. I did 1 week, and then I went back to Scotland, where I was doing a golf thing for TV, and then came back and started in Chicago.
Right. So that first meeting in Avoriaz was, how long ago was that?
I'm no good in dates. It's probably...
2 years ago, or...?
No, more than that. 4 years ago?
Yeah?
5 years ago, yeah. I was there with Donald Sutherland and John Bowman. De Palma was on the jury, I think, with Bowman. Yeah.
So I didn't realise the script had been around that long, actually, that he was looking to do it for that long.
Well, no, I don't think he had the script then. That's when I met him as a person.
Oh, he didn't broach it with you then?
No.
Oh, right.
The script came afterwards. And then, he wanted me to sort of play the old cop on screen and off as well, and wind him up,
keep him going.
Yeah. So I just sort of kept very anti-American, kept him on the defensive all the time.
What kind of director is Brian De Palma compared to Jean-Jacques Hano, which just because you complete name of the road just before to do this one?
Well, they have similarities one way. They are both very, very complete in the department of technical. They're very sound. They know all the lighting and lenses and what you can shoot, what you can't shoot, all the technical side of it. De Palma surprised me really how patient he was as a director.
Who is the actor?
Yes, because it was not an easy film. With a lot of horses and fights and many changes in location, Montana, and then, expecting snow, and we got rain, and we got sunshine. And filming in Chicago was quite difficult because we had no studio. We filmed everything on the streets in improvised hotels and things. And for the director, it was a very heavy picture. And but I think his decision had been that because he'd got a really good script with characters, that he was determined to get the best he could out of the actors. I think if I had any criticism of him before I'd worked with him was when I looked at some of his films. They always had something very stylish about them, quite epic, a bit bloody and violent, but somehow a bit heartless, a bit detached, clinical. Sorry?
Not this one.
No. That's why I think that he was prepared to hang in and go and get through more and more to what all the interrelationships were figuring that if he made that work, he knew he could take care of the other side. And but I think it pays off. It's a very kind of complete film. I think all the villain, the evil is set up, the good is presented, the naivete, the mixing and the learning, and then how tough and how corrupt, as it were, what's his name, Kevin, had to become to be able to deal on the first level with somebody like Frank Nitti or Capone.
Did you need to rehearse a lot like you usually do? And did he allow you to... Did he have time to... Because it was a big budget.
Yeah, no, we rehearsed for... they rehearsed the entire picture for 2 weeks in Chicago. We did all the kind of costume fittings, blockings, shooting with guns and police, and then we saw all the locations, and I went with the actors to the different sets that we're going to be working on in the place where we could see it and find it all out so it wouldn't come as a surprise. I personally like to have a week in advance in my hand, what the schedule is and what I'm going to be shooting and everything, so that I can prepare my own self, my own way. And they used to come in the car with me, either Charlie or Andy, sometimes both, sometimes Kevin. And then we blocked it all out in rehearsals, and then when we would go and see it, then there was no surprises. I mean, for example, in the house of Malone, it was in a very old neighborhood which he would have been living in, and therefore all they had to do was decorate it and furnish it with the right time, the right period, and it was amazing how real it became, because it wasn't a set built knowing that the wall could come out or the roof could go up. And the woman Patricia, who did all the sets and everything, found these old gas cookers and beds and sideboards and things, and it makes a terrific difference to the look of the picture, and the streets and the rotundo and glass dome and the library there in Chicago. I mean, and as a city, it's very photogenic for that kind of thing.
Do you think that the movie is very moving to not only there is a lot of emotion, and do you think it comes from David Mamet a lot?
Yes, I think. Oh yeah, and also because
it's certainly a tough movie. I mean, the emotion is real. It's not usual. Kind of
I agree, but I think it's very much the pitch of the emotion, because from the very beginning, going from the Capone having his nails done and everything, and having a press conference, going to that very leisurely scene in the bar and blowing up the little girl. Well, if you start that way, you set such a pitch that, I mean, my wife hadn't seen it and nearly jumped off the seat when the explosion came. And then you know who the villain is, then you know what they're capable of, and then it's compounded when he takes the baseball bat, bashes in the guy's head and everything. And then you suddenly realize what you're into, therefore what they're all capable of. And therefore all that very almost corny home life with little girl and everything suddenly has an element of genuine danger, because you've seen what's happened to one of the little kids before, and it's quite simplified in a way that the good and the evil and quite biblical in its sense. And I think that's one of the reasons it works too. And the story builds and builds and builds, and you keep thinking, well, okay. And there's some, very good elemental twists. The idea that when Capone has eventually got into court after taking all this time, that he's sitting there yawning and laughing in the court, and then the district attorney says, I don't understand why he's not concerned. Well, everybody's saying exactly the same before he says it, in the audience, where you think, well, we've got him here, but he doesn't seem to be concerned. It's a very good play on on all the emotions. And then the idea of taking somebody as altruistic and naive as Eliot Ness, the way it's conceived in this story, and then exposing him to all the dirt and shit that he has to get himself into to be able to deal with, the Capone organization, is perfect drama material, because they want him to, win. Yeah? And I mean, it's pretty fair in its estimation, because the price you pay to win, you have to lose 50% of the people.
Did you just work off the Mamet script, or did you go back yourself and look at some of the annals of the period?
Well, Malone, in fact, is a real person, but he did not perform the function he does in this film. This idea is solely Mamet, to be able to teach the young Ness, which is it's a much better stroke than him just learning it himself, because it takes so long to make him fail in so many places and things, whereas you jump a few pages and scenes by having somebody anticipating them before they happen, and that's why the introduction of somebody like Malone was very good. But we had all the old stuff. There's an enormous amount of research there. All the clothes, all the records, police stuff and everything. Mamet sent me a policeman's badge from 1920. It's called a pie dish. It's heavier than that, really. And it's pure silver, solid silver, with the Chicago police on it, as a kind of, gift before I started the picture. I've never met him. I spoke to him yesterday in Vermont. He couldn't come because he's got some domestic situation. But he's a tremendous writer.
So you didn't bother to go back and actually look at Malone and what his background was, what sort of a man he was?
No, because I had been told already that it was not. We had the photograph of him, and it was not. He just used the name because there had been a Malone. But this idea was pure and simply Mamet's.
Just a dramatic plot
ploy.
twist. Yeah. How did you see Malone? I mean, he was in a sense a kind of father confessor figure.
Well, that's,
albeit in a strange context.
Yeah, but that was the sort of it was more or less planted that way in the story, that what his functions were. But what it did do, how it was written, was it gave one plenty of license to be able to play more, and it's kind of fun to do as a part.
More fun than Name of the Rose, which you had a lot of fun with, I think.
Name of the Rose was one of the toughest films I've ever had to make. Oh my God, yeah, it was freezing, open sandals, shaved head, and it was, God, conditions, and then switching from Germany to Italy, taking 1 month off in the middle. I'll never do that again. It's like starting up on a new film. And we had all 12 different nationalities, everybody seeing it their own way. Oh, God. But in the end, it's a good movie, I think. Yeah. It was thrown away here in America.
Really?
Oh, disaster. It should have been along with what the producer wanted, which was to stay in Europe and then expose it here.
Slowly, yeah. Jean-Jacques came out to Australia and was saying he was very disappointed.
I met him, actually. He'd just come from Australia when... Where was I when I went? Where was the show? In London. Was it London? That's right. They had a showing in London, a press conference and a dinner in London. And Jean-Jacques came straight from Australia. Absolutely whacked out.
I think he enjoyed himself down there, though.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's very good, Jean-Jacques. He's got great enthusiasm.
Oh, yeah.
It's marvellous.
Is it fair to say that your performance in that film lifted you up again onto another plateau, in a sense? I mean, as an actor?
As an actor? Well, probably, yeah, because it's kind of unusual part. And not the sort of thing that I would not normally be considered for, you know, as an actor. Certainly, if it was an American film, I don't think they would have thought of me. In fact, Jean-Jacques was not all that convinced until we met, and neither was I convinced that he could direct it. Because, you know, the only condition I made was that I would come and spend 3 days in Munich with all my notes and everything, and if we found out at the end of the first day or the second day or the third day that it was not going to work, we would just say, okay, it's better to find out now. But once we sat down and started to talk about what it was about and how one saw it and wanted to do it, we had no problems. And then it was the same more or less to the end. We just, because he was very clear in how he wanted to shoot the picture, and I was equally clear on how I wanted to play it, you know.
Was it the same? Sorry, was it the same for Brian De Palma, Untouchables? Malone, I mean?
More or less, yeah, because you know, the idea being that one was going to be the old cop who was going to, if he did come back, he was reluctant at first, and then when he does, kicks ass and, you know, makes them kind of shape up, and then comes very close to being a kind of bore about it, you know, and he wanted to keep that off and on the screen too, you know. Yeah, so, and he's a great audience, Brian. Oh, great audience. He just laughs at everything and anything. And, he used to do all sorts of improvisations.
Oh, really?
You know, yeah.
That didn't go onto the film, onto the screen.
No, but it was how we found different ways to play different scenes, you know, and kind of I'd be quite anti-American, as I say, and abusive, and they keep trying to talk me, and I keep talking them.
Like what would you say to him? What sort of thing?
Well, you know, if somebody would come off and make a comment after we'd done a rehearsal, and I'd say, well, you're not going to play it like that, are you? And, you know, Americans don't travel very well, you know, do things like that, which makes them up their nose a bit. But it became just a fun kind of repartee situation.
And with Kevin Costner and Charles Bronson and Andy Garcia, because they're American.
All of them.
Yes.
Oh yeah, did them all on all the time.
Get them all on their toes.
Yeah. But they had some fun in Montana because of the horse riding sequences. You know, like Charlie hadn't been on a horse, and Andy didn't know much about horses. Kevin, of course, is a good horseman, but he spent quite a bit. And I've done a lot of riding, but only when I do movies. I never see a horse for another. Last time I was on a horse, I think it was Highlander. That's right. Yeah. That was very successful in Paris, in France, that film, and nothing in America. That's another one that 20th Century Fox threw away.
Again, it did well in Australia, though.
Huge in London. In one cinema in London, it was there for a year. For the time it opened, it made £1 million in London, that picture. Incredible, and he threw it away here. The two producers were suicidal. So I had 2 films back to back for Fox. Well, Fox distribution, we just threw out. Didn't work. No.
Do you get very frustrated with that? I mean, do you attempt to have a say?
I got angry. I had phoned Barry Diller in the office, and I couldn't believe that, you know, I think, you see, for example, on the construction of the sets, design of the sets of the name of the roads, I didn't see anything in the whole year or in the last 5 years that was any better or comparable in design and concept and everything. The labyrinth, you know, and that place built outside, and wonderful stuff. And Collie, Tonino, his lighting was fantastic. Absolutely. No mention. Absolutely. And that's what I think is, it's a real disgrace, because I think that there is an insularity in Hollywood, that there are unaware that there are people in Europe and different places who are capable. In fact, I was so angry I got Eichinger to come with all his correspondence about what he was wanting them to do in terms of release and everything. And everything he wrote in the final letter came to pass. You know, what he said was the kind of plan he wanted, a campaign he wanted. If they were insisting on opening in the United States, he was saying, why don't you wait, let us open it. I'm sure he did, for example, 48 million Deutschmarks from October 16th till February 16th, which is like colossal money. I mean, that's for his music, $24 million. I mean, it's unbelievable money. And so he was right, but not just there. In everywhere other than here. This is the only place the film didn't make money.
Very parochial market.
Yeah.
Very parochial.
But you see, if they had held it back and seen the figures, and then given it the proper kind of build-up and the proper outlet, like they did with The Mission. I mean, Putnam understood this issue with The Mission, so he cultivated because it had won at Cannes, it won the Palme d'Or. They immediately were interested. You know, they cocked their ears when they heard that kind of money, and it had the same success in Italy, same success in France, same success in Spain, and all the Latin American countries. I mean, so something should have clicked and told them. Wait a minute.
Does it frustrate you sufficiently to consider setting up your own production company and producing and even possibly directing?
Well, that wouldn't be the answer. The answer, the solution rather, to that is how they distribute it, when they distribute it, because the timing is so important. I mean, when has there ever been a film that made maybe 2 times as much money in West Germany than it made in the whole of the United States? I mean, it usually works out that the domestic, which is the United States and Canada, is about 51 to 54% of the money the picture takes, and the other 49 or 46 will be the rest of the world.
Of course, quite a few things have changed in recent years when it comes to movie distribution. The booming growth in streaming services means the profit pie has been sliced and diced significantly. But so has increased access to films for the public, including The Untouchables, via one or other of those many streaming services that you can get now on your TV. By the way, Sean Connery went on to make more than 90 films. Sadly, he died in October 2020 at his home in the Bahamas. He was 90 years old. What a career.